Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to draw a two-story building for both commercial and residential use. I've liked this picture for a long time, but haven't figured out how to draw it because it looks really complicated. However, it turned out to be okay when I actually started drawing it, as I omitted many details. And I changed the tree on the left into climbing plants, because climbing plants are really beautiful. If you want good blending effects, you should draw more quickly, or you could spray a little more water. Because the surface of the paper has basically dried now. Today, I don't want the effect of colors blending into each other. Since the first layer of color is very light, I won't spray water anymore. This way, the first layer of color will be slightly more intense. When I got to the lower half, it felt like the paper had already dried, but that's okay. Sometimes, the effect of no blending can look very crisp and refreshing. Color mixing is actually an exploration of blending colors. You can experiment with different colors more often, and you will become increasingly familiar with the relationships between them. Many times, I learn from my mistakes. It's actually fine to learn from other people's methods, but only through practice can you truly master them. It's actually very difficult to copy someone else's technique, exactly. However, you can gain some inspiration from the process of learning and trying to copy their methods. For example, you might discover some strengths that you have, which may be what sets you apart from others. You can try to build on and highlight these unique qualities. This will be a very interesting process. This is how I understand how to create a work with your own style. Fully utilize your techniques to express the parts that interest you. For the parts you feel can be ignored, you can spend less effort or even leave them out entirely. For example, in this picture, I didn't draw the tree on the left. Instead, I added climbing plants, but I also didn't draw every single leaf because I felt it was unnecessary. In terms of color, I applied them very broadly with just a few strokes. When I think that I can't achieve the effect I want with a brush, I'll consider using splattered dots. Now, use a clean brush to absorb a little moisture to lighten the color. Such light colors look very soft. Now, I'll start with the pencil sketch. Although the surface of the paper isn't completely dry yet, I can begin with the parts that have already dried. If you draw incorrectly, you can erase it with an eraser, and it won't affect the colors that have already been drawn. Then you can proceed to color directly. If you want to color while drawing the pencil sketch, that is also possible. I'll start by drawing the shaded parts. The shadows in the reference picture aren't purple, but I just want to use purple, because I think shadows tend to be cooler in the darker areas, but I don't want such a strong contrast between cool and warm tones. So I chose to add a bit of red, which resulted in a purple. When painting the interior, I use the wet and wet technique. The objects inside the room are not very clear, so there's no need to paint them too precisely. Overall, it's still a relatively darker area. I also roughly painted the basic colors of these stools without carefully following the outlines, because I think this way of painting fits the style of the entire piece. When painting the window frame, I layered the colors gradually, adding a slightly darker shade with each new layer. To maintain my focus and patience, I usually start by painting the colors that interest me the most. Then, depending on the situation, I might consider adding a few more layers of color. You may have already noticed that I don't paint shadows on everything. In some places, I just apply a single layer of color. If you, like me, prefer styles that can be completed quickly, then speed, painting, and sketching are both top choices. Drawing these tiles requires a bit of patience. I usually decide how many colors I'm going to use first. When I draw, I start with the lighter colors and build up the layers gradually. The shaded parts of the tiles were painted with about 3 layers of color. I didn't carefully paint each one individually. Instead, I painted with a general feel, making 1 or 2 strokes. If I were to fill in each one individually, it would probably look very rigid. So when painting, I try to make it look more varied. Now it looks like there are 4 layers of color. I'll start using a waterproof pen to outline the leaves of the climbing plants. I will intuitively decide where to paint these leaves, simply because they look more comfortable in some places than in others, and that's my criterion for judgment. I will select some leaves with beautiful shapes and graceful postures from reference images of climbing plants to paint on. The colored tiles still need to be emphasized with black lines to make their shapes clearer. This also creates a contrast between lines and surfaces. If you hope to complete a watercolor sketch more quickly, outlining first and then coloring is the best option. Compared to today's approach of painting the first layer of color before outlining, I believe it would save a lot of time. However, if you still need to draw a pencil sketch first, that's a different matter. These stools are not painted very meticulously. They are not very clear to begin with, so it's enough to just capture their general appearance. The white shelf on the left side of the entrance, as well as the items on it, should be drawn briefly. The things inside the room can also only be depicted in a general way, as the picture itself is not very clear. The tiles after drawing the lines now appear to have very light colors. I need to continue painting brighter colors on top to give the roof a more layered look. I made a mistake here, so I used a clean brush to lift the color. Finally, I'll use a marker for the final touch-ups. If you're still watching, thank you so much, and feel free to leave me a message. See you in the next video.